Anti-oil extremists aren't just protesting anymore. They're not just blocking roads or having sit-ins. On Sunday, they actively sabotaged an oil pipeline, tampering with the equipment, putting real lives in danger, not to mention risking oil spills they allegedly care about. We've shown you in the past how anti-oil protesters conduct themselves. Here are images from the mini riot on Burnaby Mountain, BC. They're violent, they're gross, they're well-paid and well-organized by US-based environmental lobbyists. They're hypocrites, of course. These protesters use oil and gas every day. They drive to the protests. They use oil and gas-based technologies like cell phones and Twitter. They jet to conferences. But on Sunday, their protests, which are often illegal, took a darker turn towards sabotage. Anti-oil extremists broke into a pumping station of an oil pipeline called Line 7 on the bottom left of the screen there. You see it in southwestern Ontario near Cambridge, and they turned the valve on the pipeline to shut it off. Now that pipeline, Line 7, carries 150,000 barrels of oil per day, and these extremists blocked it. Now, of course, the company that owns the pipeline, Enbridge, immediately detected that and took safety precautions and shut off the flow. But can you imagine if they didn't? And if the extremists involved weren't stopped? Can you imagine a 150,000 barrel per day pipeline being blocked by eco-saboteurs? And if the pipeline kept pumping and pumping and pumping against the blockage, could have broken, could have caused an oil spill. So-called anti-oil activists actually risking an oil spill. But you know they would have loved it. They'd have been famous. They'd have made the news. And they'd prove that oil was dangerous because they broke in, tampered with equipment, and made it dangerous. In other words, in this case, anti-oil criminals were threatening the environment and human safety, and the oil companies saved the environment. A bit ironic, don't you think? Now, there are hundreds of oil and gas pipelines in Canada and the US. Here's a map of just the biggest ones. There's also a pipe that goes into your own home, of course. I mean, how do you think you get natural gas for your stove or furnace? Pipes are the safest way to move those substances. I mean, this isn't shocking. This isn't new. Pipelines have been around since ancient days. Here's an ancient Roman aqueduct in Spain. Now, we're more high-tech now. We usually bury our pipelines now for safety and aesthetics, although these are quite beautiful. And we carry many more things in our pipelines now than just water. Pipelines are normal and safe. People without pipelines, they tend to live in squalor, like this image from Bangladesh. But throw $100 million of propaganda against pipelines, and some people will start to believe that the pipelines are a problem, not a solution to problems. But look again at that spider's web tangle of pipelines, hundreds of them, plus thousands of little ones not on the map. So how do these criminals choose which pipelines to tamper with? Because you see, it's not random. They don't tamper with pipelines that bring in OPEC oil to North America. For example, there's a huge pipeline from Portland, Maine to Montreal that brings in oil from OPEC tankers like these here. This pipeline disgorges these tankers unload their oil in Portland, and then it's piped up to Montreal, and it has done so since 1941. That's 75 years. There's the pipe right there. There has never been an eco-protest against it. Only pipelines with Canadian ethical oil in them are protested. Line 7, Line 9, Keystone XL pipeline, Northern Gateway, Trans Mountain, Energy East. Do you see what's going on here? It's not politics, it's crime now, sabotage, industrial sabotage against Canada's key export oil. It's so specific. Out of the hundreds of pipelines in North America, including ones bringing in OPEC conflict oil like that Portland to Montreal pipeline, none are touched, none are protested, none are blocked, except those originating from Canada. That's not random. There are calls by environmental extremists to block oil tanker ships, but only those off our west coast, where they would export Canadian oil. There's never a call to ban OPEC tankers bringing foreign oil to Canada on our east coast, or the coast of Maine. That is not a coincidence. That is because all of these protests are foreign funded. It's a foreign campaign of economic sabotage. Not just physical criminal sabotage, I've shown you a dozen times the Rockefeller Brother Fund's multi-million-dollar campaign to demonize Canadian oil. Just Canadian oil, not American oil, not OPEC oil. At what point do we as Canadians grow up a bit and realize that although the people on the ground doing the actual rioting or sabotage might be just stupid college kids, the people organizing them and funding them and directing them are deadly serious activists based in the US and elsewhere? At what point in time do we start to protect our national interests? Maybe even have an official inquiry into these eco-crimes? Well, don't hold your breath. As you know, Gerald Butts, the principal secretary to Justin Trudeau, he used to be the president of the World Wildlife Fund Canada, one of the very lobby groups that received huge foreign funding to oppose Canadian oil and gas. Just Canadian oil and gas. You can see his organization in that Rockefeller Brother Fund's campaign spreadsheet here as one of the front groups fighting against Canadian oil. Gerald Butts and Justin Trudeau would never actually commit a crime, like breaking into an oil pipeline pumping station and sabotaging it. They're much more refined. They just pass laws and issue orders to ban tankers, ban pipelines, and bring in carbon taxes, but only on Canadian-made oil, mind you. In fact, I'm surprised the foreign anti-oil lobby is still spending money on criminal sabotage. I mean, they've got their man in the Prime Minister's office now. Really, what do they need besides that?